Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways, a podcast about everything weird, wild, and wise. Tonight, we're getting extraterrestrial and ultraterrestrial. Hold on one second, sorry. Did you guys hear that?
Clicking noise?
No, sorry. I had like some feedback loop going on, so I had to fix it. I'm good now. It was just like to add to the weirdness of the topic, I think. All right. So anyway, we're getting extraterrestrial and ultraterrestrial as we break down the barriers between the many paradigms surrounding the phenomena of aliens. This topic is an oldie and a goodie in the web of weird, and it promises to keep us entertained tonight. So let's get started by meeting our guests. First up, we have Francois. Francois is a French Canadian and was a normie until life forced him to change his views. Francois was probably contacted at childhood and is on the path of self-discovery. While he is logic-based, he knows we need to open up to phenomena outside what the mainstream science can explain. Frank, thank you for being here.
Hi.
And once again, we're also lucky to be here with my man, Jeff. Jeff is a traveler of the many layers of reality as he weaves wisdom while he wanders and channels creation into our sphere via many methods and musical mediums, also known as the dark side. Jeff, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
And finally, a returning multi-round champion to the panelist lineup, Claude Furry is with us tonight again. Claude is the master of synchronistic research and the host of a breakthrough podcast called Breaking Basic, where he winds his way through wizardry with his co-host, Benjamin Fesser, another repeat guest to the show. I'm excited to have you back once again, brother. Thank you for being here, Claude.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here again.
Awesome. So let's actually do our white wave first tonight. So we're going to take a moment tonight to send some loving energy out to a friend of the show, Chris Putnam. Him and his wife are about to embark on some adventures in having children. We're going to visualize, if you want to, with us tonight, you're going to visualize a healthy conception, a healthy pregnancy, and a healthy birth for Chris and his wife. I'm going to drum a little bit to help send that energy out to Chris and his wife. And again, only people who want to participate in sending out this burst of love or karma or however you want to think about it for your own self are welcome to participate. And anybody who doesn't want to doesn't have to. And everyone can hold that image of their mind of a healthy pregnancy, a healthy conception, and a healthy birth for Chris Putnam and his wife. Awesome. I think I participated in that so far. Our white waves have had really good success, and even one of our white waves was out to Kelly Spitzer and her boyfriend. He was fighting some, I want to say, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that, but just recently she messaged the group and said that he has 100% free from cancer right now. So nice job, everybody. There's science behind this. It's not just woo-woo. When we all put our visualizations together at the same time on the same target, it has actual physical effect in the world. So we're going to keep doing this for people who enjoy it and so that we can help some people. So thank you. But we'll get back to the show now and we'll do our pointless question of the episode. So my pointless question for tonight was, I was just wondering which pop star you would all most like to see in the Oval Office next, and what you hope they talk to Donald Trump about. Let's start with Claude.
Oh my. I think they all hate him. I don't know. I mean, pop star.
Okay, maybe it doesn't have to be like super pop star. Like if it's someone kind of offbeat famous, maybe you could do that.
Will Ferrell, just because I would love to see him dog on Trump and Trump.
That would be pretty awesome.
So
Everybody could get behind
especially
that.
maybe if he did his George W. Bush impression while he's doing it, that would be incredible. Timeless.
That's a good one. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. Can we
All right.
see Christopher Walken in the White House talking to Trump? I think that would just be an amazing thing to witness. Just period.
I think you should make America great again.
That is an awesomely good call. Hell yes, I would totally watch that happily.
Yeah.
What do you think, Frank?
I think I'd like to see Conor McGregor.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'd love to see that thing.
because you want to see him beat the shit out of Trump, or
Not necessarily beat the shit out of him. Honestly, I love the guy. I'm one of the rare guys that love him. But no, I think just the conversation would be a lot of entertainment. Yeah.
yeah, Conor McGregor's a little firecracker. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be awesome. Yeah.
I think their egos would just collide so amazingly that who knows what would happen.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I think it'd be one hell of a conversation. Yeah, with a lot of fucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love it. I'd love it. I don't know. I don't think I have something else. I mean, for me, pop stars, what the hell? What are they doing in the
are
White House?
they?
What the? I don't know. I don't understand that thing.
Well, I will
It's
say,
pretty random.
so Kim Kardashian did get Trump to get people released from prison for bullshit.
That is cool.
That, to me, that was freaking incredible. So we need more of that. So if more pop stars want to go to the White House to perform those types of things, I'm all for it. Otherwise, keep your freaking dancing monkey noses out of the White House. Politics. Dance.
It is pretty weird that like Trump met Kanye when he was coming out of his rehab, which I think is a reprogramming MK Ultra sort of situation. So then I'm like, man, is Trump his like Ultra handler? Is he like the handler behind? Why are they even connected? It's super weird.
Put that together, but yes, you're totally right.
And now he's there in the Oval Office. Like have we ever had anything like that happen before?
I don't think so. No.
I'm really like not connected enough to know. I mean, probably there's been some stars in the Oval Office before, but
for sure.
It seemed like a pretty
quite like this, though. Especially a star that's not ultra left wing. That's the difference.
Yeah, he's actually like a pro-Trump dude. Pretty weird. I was thinking like maybe Miley Cyrus could be interesting. She could go in with her like super like sexual outfit on and like make like Riot Girl statements or something. I don't know. And just like get super weird.
I know
But
that I would Trump in that situation. So.
It'd be so weird. Which is why I'd like to see it, because it'd just be too bizarre. But then I was also thinking like maybe throw in someone like I don't know, Cat Stevens or what he's called now, Yusuf Israel. Just like bring some peaceful vibes in there. Maybe that'd be a good thing. Anyway, let's talk about aliens. We could talk about the White House and aliens. Did anybody ever, this is not on our question list, but has anybody ever heard of the aliens over the White House thing?
Oh, absolutely. With Eisenhower. Yeah. And that kind of ties back to a whole other can of worms we were talking about before we went live about the breakaway civilization, the Nazis and Antarctica and that whole mess. So for sure, there's been a lot.
It's super weird that we had this huge event where there's aliens, or what seemed to be aliens, some type of lights, at least UFOs over the White House. They were there for a good amount of time too. I want to say, now I wish I brushed up on it, but many minutes, right? Does anybody know?
Sure. The exact amount of time I'm not sure, but it was when Eisenhower was in office, unless I'm mistaken, and that was after all of the German scientists had come over. I'm gonna have to brush up on that.
Got to be time traveling Templars involved somehow. All right, well, let's go back to the to where we were actually wanted to start, which is what do you guys make of the fact that UFO sightings tend to come in waves, or they call them often like UFO flaps, over certain areas at certain times?
Programs.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I think it's about programs. I mean, you have these extraterrestrials, these species. They have programs to do. I mean, what I mean is, okay, during 5 years, I'm gonna study these group of people right here, and that's everything I'm gonna do at this period. So that's why you see at this place so much UFO sightings and everything that comes with it.
Oh,
That's
so they're
what I think.
like if they're like scientists and they're coming into that area to gather a specimen or something. Okay.
Yeah, to me, it's all it's a big part. A big chunk of it is a science project, nothing else.
Well, I think that could tie in with what I was going to say, because I tend to approach that from a more esoteric angle, where we know that everything in nature, everything in the universe follows distinct patterns and rhythms and seasons. You know, it happens on the Earth, it happens in space. You have seasons in everything, negative to positive, left to right, up to down. UFO sightings, crop circles, Bigfoot sightings, they all seem to be influenced by certain seasons, certain tides, or I kind of came up with the word cosmic tide. So, and we know that, you know, when Mercury's in retrograde, everyone on Earth loses their minds. So as certain seasons come around, whether it's Leo's and Taurus, whatever it is, perhaps those are better times, like you're saying, for these aliens or extraterrestrials, entities, whatever you want to call them, to do certain types of projects or relay certain types of information. Maybe they're tied to our realm of being, or our whatever you want to call it is better. It's easier for them to communicate with us. Therefore, December is a better time to abduct people.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Jeff?
Claude pretty much summed up what I was going to say about there being, a great sort of clockwork to the universe that we don't really have all the information about. So I'd imagine that if you were a civilization that traveled the universe, you would probably have better knowledge about these things. And just like a shipmaster, right, coming into port at one tide is just right. Because if you do it wrong, you'll shipwreck. It's probably something similar, where certain things line up and they know they can go where they need to go. Assuming it's all a real thing. If not, who knows? Who knows? There could be an artificial pattern to it, just because it's like, okay, the humans need to be stirred up now. Boom, push the button, and crazy things happen.
Right. That's a good point too. It makes me think of, though, with the kind of seasons or the right timing sort of thing, makes me think of how we have to launch at certain times, allegedly, into space that allegedly exists. Like we can't just do it whenever we want. If we want to get to a certain spot, we have to like time it just right. So that's an interesting point.
They said that, what was it when they launched the satellite or the lander that landed on that, what was the asteroid called that they landed on? And if you go back and you watch the
Rosetta, I think.
Oh, right.
Right. I mean, that thing, it did how many rotations around the Earth, and then it went out around the solar system until it finally, whoever did the math, if this actually happened, to have that thing come up and line up directly with that thing is just mind-blowing.
It is mind-boggling. It is ridiculous.
But as above, so below, you consider the best times for you to travel on the seas. You're not going to go during the winter. You're not going to go during fall storms. You're going to go during a certain time of year. If you're going to go on a ship especially one that sails from England to the United States, you're not going to go during hurricane season.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with launching a boat. Every day you're going to go with the tide, because it'll take you out into the harbor. So,
yeah. Well, so speaking of all of these things like that are dependent on whether or not these UFOs are kind of the nuts and bolts, like actual ships arriving from somewhere, or whether there's something else, where do you land if you have to pick like what this phenomena is? What are you going to go with?
I pick all of them. I think what we're witnessing is humans here on Earth is a plethora of different phenomena. Some probably ultra-terrestrial, some definitely man-made, and some is actually just swamp gas. Sure.
Oh,
No.
I agree completely. Yeah, I mean, you've got little bits of flavor in different human beings. Consider, we have people that are way more empathic than other people. We have people that are born sociopaths. We have people that are born people pleasers. Whatever that is, if we have that type of disparity between our own culture, our own people, even people that are raised in the same house, one can be a completely empathic individual, and the other one's going to be a completely narcissist type person. That's going to happen. Consciousness is consciousness, and we can only think about it from a human point of view. So if it exists that way here, it exists that way there. So take that to a technological level, we almost have to understand that our technology begins right here. Everything that we have, everything that we have discovered, everything that we've ever invented or created, all began right here. Happens the same way up there. So literally, it is a little bit of both. And if they're that much more advanced and they can travel warp speed, warp 9, whatever it is, make it so, and make it to Earth, a lot of that exists up here. Maybe they're sitting, and it's all virtual.
Hmm.
Just a thought.
What about you, Frank?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay. Part of me wants to live in a galaxy where there's multiple species and there's people that find us interesting enough to come. But on the other hand, I see the possibility of a technology being used by the elites that we just don't have that we don't know at the moment. Sorry, I'm struggling in English.
No, you're good.
a little
I get
bit.
it. Like that we don't understand yet. We don't have the capability to understand it yet.
Not necessarily, but we, a technology that they just don't want us to use as the peasants we are.
We're the riffraff.
Yeah.
We're not allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of like, I'm with you, Jeff. Like I think there's shit that you can see in the sky that is actually there. It's nuts and bolts. There's a ship up there. And my idea about that is that it's probably Black Ops, like, secret programs have created things that we don't know yet, as the civilians that we are. And then I think that there are probably travelers from other sort of realms or spaces that are also there that can make lights in the skies that people would think are a ship. And technically, I guess it's a UFO because it's up there and we don't know what it is. But I don't necessarily think there's like a being or a craft like sitting there in the sky when that happens. I think like maybe kind of like what you're saying, Claude, where there's like some consciousness is kind of projecting that there, like through time and space or through dimensions or something. I don't really know, but
that's what you hear that a lot.
Technology is consciousness based.
Yes. Yeah.
So now you're talking about something that's so spooky. It's nearly beyond our realm, beyond our ability to comprehend it. We can think of consciousness in a primitive human way, but imagine you're a species that completely understands it and have a technology based on it. Well, just blew my own mind with that. You know what I mean? Like, what does that even look like? Can you, for example, create something in 3D space temporarily and fly it around like an actual spaceship, and then when you don't need it, poof, it evaporates. It's
like a Merkaba?
While it's here, and then it's gone because it's based strictly on consciousness.
Well, quantum physics says yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. And I think that when you start looking at religions, concepts of God, concepts of deities, whatever it is, you can almost draw a comparison to that being a type of metaphor to attempt to explain that, because we can't wrap our minds around it. Like Jeff was saying, you can't fathom what nothing is. What is void? You can't fathom it. You also can't fathom what prescience would be. because you're a localized consciousness to yourself. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have a connection to the greater consciousness, because I believe that we all do. However, you're still Lindsay Sharman, you're still Jeff, you're still Francois, and still Claude. You're not an all-present being, and I think that if I don't think that we could handle that in this shell anyway.
You don't know me, Claude. I'm just joking, but I was going to say something just like that too. Like there's, some people when they go in, when there's near-death experiences and people come back, a lot of them will say things like, there's a reason why we can't access those realms. And it's because we're not quite capable yet of like controlling our thoughts well enough to not just like start producing every random thing we think of. It's like, don't think of a purple dinosaur. You're going to think of a purple dinosaur. It's like you can't control your thoughts really. So this is kind of where we're at, because this is where we can be.
Interesting.
Now we've gone far from aliens, perhaps. So let's get back. Some people who report having interacted with possibly aliens have reported missing time. Have you guys ever heard of any missing time cases, or what's your take on that phenomenon?
I guess I can jump in. I think that you can't really have a conversation about aliens without considering, especially in the classical sense of them flying in spaceships, whatever, but you can't really consider it without taking time travel into account. We know that the faster you get to the speed of light, according to Einstein's theory, the slower time moves until you become relative to time itself. So consider someone who is abducted. They get abducted, they get taken away, they have their missing hours, days, and there's even people that say they experience months worth of life while they were away. They go into this regressive therapy and they're recounting situations and conversations and all these things that take weeks, months, but they were only gone for a couple of hours. So, and they haven't seemed to age. So I think that we really have to consider time travel as a part of this, and in that thought, considering time not existing quite as we think it does. I think the Earth is in a bubble of its own little time sphere.
It's interesting too that you say that, because it'd be more like, it's not just missing time, it's more like time dilation. Like
Right.
Sometimes, like you said, it would take years and years and years, and then you're only gone an hour. And sometimes it's like you're missing many hours, but it only seemed like a moment.
And we even see that from a localized standpoint. When you get into a car wreck or something like that, time seems to stand still while you're going through this, and then when it's all over, boom, it all crashes at once, and you're like, oh, and you're drained. You're completely and then you start getting flashes of that.
So there's some mix of subjective and objective time dilation going on. But there are, allegedly there's like objective time has been taken from a person too. In some cases.
You're talking about like the brainwashing or something like that? It's just they've forgotten about it?
Well, so somebody will, for example, one time I went outside, I smoked a cigarette, I came back inside, my friends were like, where the fuck were you? And I was like, I was on the porch smoking. And they're like, no, you weren't. We went out there. And I was like, I was right there. And they're like, no, we have looked everywhere for you for hours. And 3 hours was gone.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never had it that bad, but I've had people go, where have you been? Right there.
Right there. So, and I've heard like tons and tons of stories like this too, where people just seem to have chunks of time that are just gone.
Hey,
and so what's allegedly happening is they're abducted during that time. Like they were taken and put back.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stories about people entering the time warps portals, in the middle of the desert or whatever, and they should have been driving for 6 hours. They've only been on the road for an hour, and they ended up in Las Vegas. How?
Yeah.
I think that may have been a story that was recounted on either Rogueways or Chapman Higher I can't remember, but somebody said that.
Somebody said it.
Yeah, you see all kinds of all throughout history too. This isn't just a common thing. There's these ideas about energetic centers where people go and they can experience time differently. So
yeah.
What
do you think?
I experience time differently myself. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, I'm Mandela effect. I live Mandela effect a lot, and I don't know why, but for some reason, time pass really a lot slower for me. Meaning, I mean, how can I say? I'm working 12 hours a day, and my shift is done. It's like I've done 8 hours. I have to take sleeping pills to sleep. Otherwise, I'm gonna be 72 hours awake, no problem. So I have the feeling actually that time gets pass a lot slower for me for like maybe 5 years now.
It's like you're in like a localized like time dilation bubble or something.
I don't know. I don't know. It seems like everyone else feels like time's okay, but to me, it's like it's not. I mean, some people say it's aging or whatever, but I can tell you it's not what I experience at the moment at all.
Yeah.
Well, according to the aging thing, you seem to be having the opposite effect because generally it's the older you get, the faster time goes. And that's kind of based around the theory that you've already experienced all of this stuff. So when you're going through a day and you're sitting behind your desk at work, time's either going to drag or it's going to fly by depending on what you're doing. If you're doing something that you've done monotonously over and over and over for 6 months, it's going to drag by. If you're doing something new, it's all a new experience and it flies by.
Yeah.
So what you're describing is almost the complete opposite of that, and that's
Yeah, it's weird. I find it really hard to live, actually. Yeah.
Wow, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
What do you make of all the time issues, Jeff?
Well, man, time travel is like my favorite thing on earth. So, kind of feel like
Oh,
some of these abduction cases, you'll find things like people will be driving and they'll say their car stopped and the engine shut off and it immediately turned back on. But as an ex-mechanic, that's not how cars work. If it stalls, you have to start it again. So something tells me that they're being extracted from the normal experience of time, you know? And I've always kind of thought that time was, first, subjective. Second, a construct of man. We've invented time to explain how one thing changes to another, how a seed turns into a flower. Yet the instructions for that flower are in the seed. So technically it's already a flower. It just hasn't had the time to express itself into a flower. So, you know, time just, I don't think of time like a normal person does. I think it's all warped and subjective anyway. So.
You think of time like it should be thought of.
Hopefully, I don't know. I mean, there's already been experiments where they call that basically where events can affect results in the past. So that's a thing that's been recorded by scientists. Don't quote me on who or how to get that information, but it is out there. It's retrocausality.
Also,
Yeah.
Isn't the opposite? We've also found that we can affect events in the future. Wait,
Yeah.
That already.
like a butterfly effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Or also with that random number generator project, when 9/11 happened, because it was such a huge event, they were able to record data that they're basically saying there was a great disturbance in the force days ahead of time before the event actually happened. And when the event happened, that was their explanation for it. Like, oh shit, nobody saw this coming, but yet everybody saw it coming in a way because it was a huge event. So.
It went like all directions in time. It kind of like rippled out from there.
Right, backwards and forwards. So.
That's fascinating. Yeah, a lot of people had prescient dreams about it, including my sister, who didn't realize it was a dream about it until much after the fact. She went back and she had a dream journal and she read it. And on that night before it happened, she had a dream about being in a cabin in the woods and some men were trying to get in with box cutters.
Wow.
And she later was reading that and she's like, cabin, box cutters, like that's pretty weird.
Wow.
Even though I don't think that's what happened, it's still like what was put out. And so that imagery could still be floating around in the ether.
Yeah. Wow.
But I would really like to introduce Harmony, who just has joined the chat tonight. So I'm going to go back in time and read the intro for Harmony. So I'm very joyful to welcome Harmony to the show for the first time ever. Harmony is a spirit of purity rarely found on this plane and has traveled the narrow path to arrive where she is at as a garden fairy channeler, a homeschooling homemaker, and a beacon to all she encounters. Harmony, one of my oldest friends, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for the invite.
Nice to have you.
Thank you. How's my mic doing?
We can hear you, we can see you, so you're good.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for the wonderful intro. Oh my gosh, you just warmed my heart. That's so
You
great.
deserve it.
Thanks.
You're like a magical being. I say that whenever I'm talking about you to anyone. I'm like, she's like a magical fairy creature. Just flits about on this plane because she enjoys it. So, Harmony, we're about to go to the next question. We've been talking about aliens a little bit, and we're just a few questions in. And I was about to ask everyone what people think about alien implants, or what are alleged to be alien implants. If you want to jump in on that.
That is a good question. I will briefly, I don't know a whole lot about implants, but I do know from what I know that they are legitimate and that many people have them removed with no explanation of where they came from. And I find it really quite fascinating. So I'll pass the torch on to, somebody else and see what they have to say.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a problem with implants because it goes where I think can be a source for the UFO phenomenon. And by what I mean is implants could be a sort of science project, but not necessarily from another species, but our own.
Absolutely.
That's the really problem I have.
Yeah.
I'll piggyback on that. I think that my take on this was that it's probably when you look at implants, I see that as more of like a government black op thing, and then that's not to discredit anyone that has gone through that unfortunate experience of being abducted and had an implant put in them, but I don't think that that's really an alien thing. This is something that's been talked about in the conspiraspheres for decades about, the government putting these kinds of implants in people, and now it's entered the mainstream. You see it all the time. These little RFID tracking devices and all this.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my point. Sorry.
Oh, you're good, buddy.
Yeah, that's my point. Exactly. I mean, when you look at it, if you have an abductee, okay, what our government will try to do with that abductee, if the government knows about it, is to follow his movings. If he goes into space, they want to know. They want to know. And they're not going to use some sort of metal or anything. They're going to use something weird that can be followed by their isotope, like you do when you're trying to find a nuclear device, or you know what I mean.
So
you're gonna try to follow it.
You're talking about targeted individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I think it is.
They're targeted because they were targeted by an extraterrestrial or something.
Yeah, extraterrestrial, or maybe something else. I don't know what it is at the moment, but for me, yeah, the implant is really something earth-based. Yeah.
Which is interesting because a lot of, especially I feel like in the 90s or early 2000s, the information that seemed to be coming out about a lot of the implants was that some of the components of them seemed to be not of this planet. And so then I was kind of like, oh, maybe it really is, aliens coming from some other planet or part of space or whatever, and they're putting these tracking devices or whatever they are into people. But now that I am older and perhaps hopefully a little bit wiser, it could easily have been that information was just false.
Or a limited hangout.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to jump ahead in questions, but we could take this into
military abductions. Lee, let's do it. It's a good chance. It's a good place to do it. Lee was like screaming it in the chat room too. He's like, military abductions.
Yeah.
So yeah, how does it tie in with military abductions, Claude?
Let me go down to what I wrote. I think, well, this is a can of worms, man, because you could take this in several different directions, and they're putting so much about it out now in our faces with shows like Stranger Things and things like that.
X-Files.
X-Files, yeah, they're normalizing it. You know, people disappear, have things done to them, enter back into society as a Manchurian candidate, and then move on about their lives until they're activated, or they're tracked, like Francois was saying. To what point? I don't think any of us could even speculate what the point is of doing those experiments, aside from some sort of esoteric gain of energy or adrenochrome, or there's 1,000 different conspiracy theories about it.
You think that's why the military might be doing these abductions?
I think it's part of it.
Mhm.
For sure, because where does energy exist? Like I said earlier, it exists right here, and this is what they're trying to control. There's a reason. What does Alex Jones say? There's a war for your mind. Maybe that's a limited hangout itself, even the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I might actually have an implant, so I'm curious to hear everybody's ideas about it. I got the flashlight to try and shine light through it. I don't know if you can see that right there. It's a little sort of spot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I woke up with that when I was about 8 or 9, and I thought it was a bug bite because it was red and swollen. And it went down over the course of about a week, and there were no bugs. This was in an apartment in New York, and it's been there ever since. This has been in my arm probably 30 plus years, and I haven't had the guts to cut it out, but I can shine a light through and see that there's something inside about a 1/4 inch down inside my arm. I don't think the light will work because this light shining on me is too bright, but I'll take pictures of it and post them about that.
Dude, you got to find some, oh God, I don't know, some sort of numbing agent to inject in there and just like do it, or get like a nurse or something. Cause like those are like, that's not that complicated of surgery.
Well, the crazy is talking about my insane thing. So I cut a thing off my face once. It had nothing to do with an implant. I just like one of those abscesses or something.
Yeah.
This was years ago, right? But I completely lost my nerve for that kind of thing. So I tried to cut it once, and I literally couldn't do it. Like the blade got to it, and I just had like an anxiety attack, and I was just sweating. I'm like, I can't do it, and I stopped. So.
Well, dude, do you think that you lost your nerve for it because like there's something about it that is trying to stay in you, or do you think you like changed as a person in general and it's just coincidence? I
think maybe I changed too. I don't know. I was around a lot of animals. I had dogs for the last 20 years and stuff, so I got too empathetic.
Yeah.
I can't be as hardcore as I used to be.
How can we know exactly what that's doing in your body too? I mean, if you go to cut it out, maybe over the years that has somehow became a type of symbiote with your nervous system.
Yeah.
Now, how do you know what the effects are going to be for you? So that's scary. The implications are enormous for that, especially if you consider how many people might have those and not even know it.
Yeah. Well, I think I think I maybe had an implant at one point, and I believe it is gone. And I guess my question is just like, why, if the military is doing this, why would they put this random shit into people? Like, what's the point of that?
Consider Morgellons, with they say that chemtrailing is dropping all these tiny little particulates of AI everywhere, and it becomes what we know as Morgellons disease now. And, people pull out those little things and they look like little string or spiders or whatever. Maybe they're vessels for consciousness for another entity or something like that.
Interesting. Does anybody else want to say anything about military abductions?
I do want to say something about the implants and why they may be of such a foreign material. Maybe if it is the government or the military, then maybe they are actually using a foreign material that's foreign to us, because I know that they have access to things that they don't disclose to the general public. And maybe they're using these things on purpose to try to have it be a decoy against, or towards the star beings, to try to get people to have fear towards our fellow Wachakpileate.
Which is a native word, I'm guessing.
Yes, for the Star Nations.
That's a really good point. It also makes me think of black goo, which maybe would tie into Morgellons as well. It's just introducing something foreign into people in general.
Fufu's still sitting. Go ahead. You're on there.
Hi, Todd.
Lindsay said.
All right, let's talk about, because now you're bringing up the star nations, and the next question was actually, do you buy that there's multiple variations of alien species and that there's an interstellar community of all kinds of organizations and different goals, like in the whole vast cosmos that exists? It's almost like Star Trek, but we just aren't invited to the club yet.
Yes.
I want to talk about it.
Well, that's one really fascinating thing that I've been studying for years is the different indigenous cultures around the world and how they all have stories of sky gods, of star beings, of the people from other star systems coming down and giving us sacred ceremonies and giving us certain technologies and information to further the communication and relationship that we have with these other star systems. And Pleiades being one of them, the Pleiadians and Arcturians, and the fact that there is actual, names for these people and different descriptions that, kind of coincide all throughout the world before there was ever any kind of internet and social media, things like that. And that's what really fascinates me, is the really ancient stories. And it goes back to Samaria or even Göbekli Tepe. It's just really, really amazing. I'd love to hear what other people have to say as well.
And the Dogon tribe and
Yeah. And the Aboriginal people of Australia, and
Okay, Frank was excited. Frank?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, I'm not sure if there's other species out there, because I don't accept everything NASA says. I refuse even to accept anything that comes out of NASA. But on the other hand, if there's space outside, like they say it is, logic says there's many species out there. There can't be only just us. Impossible. So I'd love to have many species, and at this moment, I think what humanity needs is exactly that: talk to another sentient species and try to learn from their differences, from their different history, and what they learned about their evolution.
Well said.
I think
that's about it.
there absolutely are other species. I tend to approach everything from as above, so below nowadays. So we know that if Earth is populated by various races, cultures, and species, all the way from human down to the smallest little microbe, there's no reason that should not exist out in outer space as well. We've even found little microbes and germs that can live in the most inhospitable conditions on Earth where there should be no life, in lava, or in the coldest areas.
Tardigrade.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also no saying whether, life has to exist in the same, environment that human life, that we have to exist. There's also different etheric plane of planetary existence as well.
Sure.
Right.
One of my favorite things to ponder about aliens is that they, you'll hear NASA talk all the time about the size of the Earth and how compared to the size of the sun, it's like the size of a walnut. And then there are suns and stars that dwarf even our own sun, like 6,000 times bigger. Now consider the planets that would be in orbit around that monstrosity. The thing would just dwarf Earth. So the aliens that live on that planet would be gigantic. They would be giants, right? Because they're evolving and they're living on this planet that's 5,000 times the size of Earth. So consider them flying through outer space in their spaceship, and they come to Earth, and they're literally too big to even stand on the planet.
That would explain the physiognomy of the Greys too.
Oh, like they're little drone robot creatures sent by the giant aliens or something?
No, but I mean the Greys. If you spend your entire life in space inside a giant black dildo, I mean you're gonna be gray. You're not seeing light, so you're gonna be gray. You're gonna be translucent, and you're gonna have big eyes because there's always darkness.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Think about how even on Earth, how the deep sea creatures, what they look like. They got these big old fat eyes that are completely black, and they're evolved in a way to where they can see in their environment, but they don't see the way that we do. So
I like my brother a long time ago. I think I've said this on another show for some reason before, but he had this idea that the Greys would be just us from the future because we tend to have narrower chins as time goes on, bigger foreheads, and bigger eyes.
Yeah, who knows?
That's what I've heard before, is that they're us from the future trying to send a message to us so we don't lose our connection to our heart and turn into what they have become.
Because they're like robotic, hive mind, like emotionless creatures.
Yeah, they're trying to like stop that evolutional process of what of their lack of connection.
And we're like, give me more phones and some neural implants.
I was going to say, look at the direction that technology is taking today, and that starts to make a lot of sense. We were just talking about implants, and now we're talking about we had Elon Musk calling everyone that owns a cell phone a zombie, or a what do you call it, like an android?
An android.
Yeah, it could be coming.
What do you think, Jeff?
I'm pretty much convinced that there are multiple alien species just out there populating a universe that we are probably seeing 0.1% of, or able to experience 0.1% of. And I've even reconciled the whole idea that the flesh versus ultra-terrestrial thing, because I think about it this way, right? We're human, whatever you want to say about that word, hue, man, the multicolored, in the sense that we're experiencing part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Yes. Everything's on the electromagnetic spectrum, right? You got light, you got ultraviolet light, you got microwaves, ultra low frequencies, all that. But we as humans, we can see, this little bit of it. So we'll look at something like an elephant and just hear a bunch of primitive grunts, and be like, wow, that's cool. It's an elephant. Meanwhile, other beings that can understand ultra low frequencies, they're having conversations 50 miles from each other and know exactly what each other's saying. So I think that if you are an alien and you somehow alien in the sense that it's foreign to this 3D space, right? You're vibrating at a real high frequency, you're going to show up in a way that humans can only experience a certain portion of. So I totally believe in the multiple aliens and species and all kinds of variants out in the universe, or the multiverse, let's say.
Multiverse, yeah.
In fact, I had well, not even a dream. I woke up once and literally the word Lyra constellation was just echoing my head for no reason. Literally no reason. I just woke up and it was like Lyra constellation, Lyra constellation.
Have you looked into that? Like which entities are connected with that, or?
It blew my mind because it was like there's a whole long history of Lyra constellation. In fact, what was the dude's name? I think Alex Collier said that humanity on Earth originated from the Lyra constellation.
I've heard that the reason why they call that little harp the lyre harp is from it because it was gifted to us from the Lyrans.
Wow.
Because it's like a musical culture.
Well, that's cool, and it's also a metaphor for the music that runs this 3D show, since everything's down in frequency,
And you're a musical man, so
yeah.
Interesting.
The muses have come.
So what's the wildest theory you guys have heard about all the different types of alien species allegedly like fucking with Earth, or various people are communicating in various ways?
Each and every time I hear Keith Andrews, I'm like, all right, that shit is crazy. I'd love to live in his world, but damn, that thing, he's talking about astral traveling to outer space and speaking to hundreds and hundreds of different species everywhere. I mean, I'd love it to be reality, but you know, it's a little hard to swallow. Let's say.
Hmm.
Yeah, I go back and forth because, like, on the one hand, I've had experiences and people I love have had experiences, and so many people over time have had so many experiences. It's like there has to be something. And then I get to something like that where there's just like lists and lists of all these different alien beings, and I'm like, are we just making shit up now? Are we just
Yeah.
writing like fantasy novels now, or what's going on?
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Like I don't know where to fall on that.
But would it make a difference? Because if we made it up, then it's kind of real. So
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you get into all the dimensions of reality and all the different planes of existence, then like you're gonna probably hit on everything at some point.
True.
So I guess,
Parallel timelines.
Yeah. Sorry, what, Claude?
I could open up a whole can of worms there, but I'll stick to the question. I think I had a couple of things. I think one of them would be the guy from Blink 182, his whole book and everything that he's put out.
Yeah.
That's all ridiculousness, I believe, and it's all government limited hangout stuff.
But going to the Stars Academy stuff.
Stars Academy and all that, you know. But the big one that people talk about all the time are the Anunnaki. And
Yeah.
one of the big theories is the Anunnaki needed Earth for gold, so they, you know, genetically engineered humans to mine gold for them off of Earth, and then what, they just disappeared. I kind of feel like I don't buy into that whole thing at all.
You see, that's something I believe.
Well, this is why. Now, I'm not saying the Anunnaki didn't exist. I'm not saying they didn't genetically engineer human beings or whatever. I don't think they needed the Earth for gold.
But but wouldn't they have like snagged it up while they were here?
Right, you would think.
I mean, maybe it's not like they came here to get that, but maybe they were here and they're like, yeah, let's get that gold too. Come in handy.
You know, you could say that, but you could also say, I was reading on a alchemy forum the other day, and they said if you were to take all of the gold that exists on Earth right now that we know about, it would only be about a cube, about 19 yards wide and long. A cube of gold. That's all the gold that there is on Earth.
I don't believe that because you've seen.
So
that
where did it all go?
Yeah, and
Well, that was my question with what Lindsay was saying. Maybe they did take a shitload of it.
well, what about all the shit that like Queen fucking Evil Ho has in her
The thing is
coffers?
it doesn't take that much, and we're talking pure gold too. We're not talking.
Well, they're saying that the pyramids were lined in it too.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Where'd that go?
I don't know. And then we had El Dorado, the city of gold, things like that. But I will say, Ben was talking about this before, you know, when they were talking about the city of gold. It was actually flake gold, very, very micrometer thin flake gold that was, you know, covering these buildings.
Isn't gold superconductive?
Super conductive.
Yeah.
And doesn't it shield something in space? Like, doesn't NASA allegedly use it on their?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the idea behind why the Anunnaki would want it. So.
Or to ingest it as well.
Right.
Like monoatomic gold.
Yeah.
Ormus?
Gold, it's
Ormus.
thermal protection in space.
If there are billions and billions of galaxies and billions of worlds, and NASA's come out now and said that there are entire worlds that are made completely out of diamond, and it rains diamonds on the world. Why can't gold not exist in the same way somewhere? There might be a spinning ball of gold up there somewhere. Go there, take it.
So, what were you going to say, Frank?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Hey, Claude, I want to throw a couple more night crawlers in that can of worms, right? So thinking like, and crazy off the top stuff, right? You know, the whole flat Earth controversy, right? So imagine the Earth is a petri dish, all right? And we are on a planet that's 10 times bigger than we think it is. So now how much gold is really here? And how much gold has really been stripped from it? Because we're on a little corralled part of it, you know?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
When we dig into the Earth and we find the ultrasaurs that are 40 stories high, these are the kinds of life forms that were here before we got sort of,
Right.
you know?
So I'm going to throw in this little piece since you brought up the Lyra system. Is that it, Jeff? Lyra? Someone said, Timmy from the group said that Chris Knowles was talking about the Lyra system a lot and that there's some sort of symbolic part of that it's in a lot of our iconography, and that there's a prophecy or an oracle that shows something dangerous or bad coming from there, in addition to it being our origin as a species. I've never heard of any of that.
Yeah, me neither. Cool. I'm gonna have to research it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna try to think about what I want to say.
Okay.
Be right back.
Let us know. So I wanted to see next. Oh yeah, I forgot. We were going to talk about. No, I'm going to fit that in later. Ignore me. I'm going to go to what's the farthest back in history that you've seen what you think could be evidence of alien seeming contact on Earth?
Well, the Bible's full of it.
The Bible is full of it.
And then obviously the Anunnaki, and that gets. I don't know if you can get much further back than that.
Yeah, the Göbekli Tepe goes further back than Anunnaki, and then you have the Aboriginal people of Australia that their stories are dating, 25,000 years.
And of course the Dogon tribe. We talked.
Yeah, Dogons.
Yeah.
When are the Vimana stuff from India? Isn't that supposed to be from?
Oh yeah,
right, because that's recorded from whenever, but it's from like tens of thousands of years before that, right? The Vimanas and the Wars in Heaven. So
yeah, that's definitely.
I mean, you have to accept an alternative timeline to then what's put forth in academics, but I think all of us are pretty far beyond that.
Well, I kind of feel like a lot of the different faiths and religions and histories tell the same story from a different point of view. So when you talk about the Vedic religions, you can see a lot of those same archetypes echoed in not only Christianity but in Buddhism and Nordic religions, the Celtic philosophy. It's echoed all over the world. And
the Hopi.
The Hopi and the Blue Star.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the South American stuff yet, the Mayans and the Aztecs.
Yeah.
So it's full of it. And then what are the main themes that pop through all of that? Sacred geometry, somatics, the same shapes, the same, Merkaba shapes.
Frequency and vibration.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say the entirety of recorded history then.
Yeah, all of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's come up on a different podcast, but in a different context. But
even the panspermia.
Chris Sand brought up that there's a lot of those old paintings from the Renaissance era have what seem to be like alien ships in them, and art that goes back before then as well. But you can find it even in our art. Panspermia is another thing I wanted to talk about. Like, what do you guys think about that idea that not necessarily that aliens had to like come here to seed life, but just that all of life is seeded and that we're all kind of related all throughout the many verses?
It's possible.
Yeah.
I think it's true, but even from the esoteric sense, because we got the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and basically there's a void and there's one that plants seeds in the void. You know what I mean? It's always like two parts, always two there are, like Yoda says.
Always
so
two there are.
Where's two? Anyway, the idea goes right along and kind of goes right along with that. That there was nothing, there was a big void, and now all of a sudden there's life planted everywhere in it. So I don't know what to think of it. I don't know if I think it could be a real theory. It sounds awesome, and I definitely was in love with the theory when I first heard it. But now, after being exposed to a lot more esoteric things, it feels more like that to me.
More like kind of metaphor and symbolism.
Yeah, it feels more like a symbolic explanation for the fact that life can, be everywhere, because a lot of the same rules apply everywhere, even if we're not aware of them.
Right.
As above, so below, right?
So your take is more on universal consciousness and our specific bodies, whatever we have, we're vessels for consciousness, which can exist in almost anything, whether you're talking about a fly, somebody said an elephant earlier. It's still consciousness, but it's at a different level of consciousness. So taking that to a, being reborn into a different vessel, does your consciousness move around? You're back into the great well of universal consciousness until your turn to enter the body.
Yeah, every creature creates his own reality around it,
Well, sorry, what?
Sorry. I mean, I think every creature creates its own reality around him with his mind. You know, as much as I create my own reality around me, my cat is creating his own too. I mean, you know, the fly is too at his own uh, consciousness level.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea too, because then it's almost like I could picture the whole of existence as like
Yeah.
a I don't even know how to explain it. Like, you know, those like a lava lamp, like similar globs will like glob together. So like the
Yeah,
only reason we're
exactly.
all here together is because we're of a similar like level
Yeah.
of consciousness or something.
Yeah, buckets of existence, you know,
Yeah,
all tied together.
I like it. So conversely to panspermia, do you guys think it's possible that alien entities came and created life on Earth specifically? And you've kind of touched on it, like maybe the Anunnaki created us as a slave race or something like that. What is your guys' take on that?
I think it even talks about that in Genesis in the creation story, where
Yeah, the Nephilim.
the Nephilim. Well, more specifically, I think God, Yahweh, whatever, created Adam, and from Adam created Eve, and then they had two sons. But there were other people on Earth at the same time, because where did Cain go? Cain went to the land of Nod, married into another race of people. So,
And man, we would be fucked up if there was only those two people for all of us.
so I think that can be taken as metaphor or allegory for a specific type of consciousness. Maybe Adam was morphed into a specific vessel for a Pleiadian to inhabit, or something like that. And I guess we could consider that panspermia. Yeah, maybe.
I think they're talking about species there. I mean, I think we are atoms. We're not humans, we're atoms. You know?
Atoms.
Atoms and atoms, maybe.
Same thing. That's my take on it. My idea of the atom, the atom, I call him the atom, is like you know how kymatics, right? You can force a frequency to show up when you initiate a sound. Bible says that Adam was the one that named all the animals. So by naming all the animals, that he in essence did the atom in essence was that a tool of the creator?
Oh, Jesus.
Created all the animals. You know what I mean? Just by sort of continuing to speak. I name you whatever, and because of your name, you're now this thing, whatever the original name. I don't know.
Just blew my mind away.
Yeah,
that's like if you've ever read the Never-Ending Story.
Yeah.
The Sebastian goes into, or his name's Sebastian actually, he goes into the like book world and he creates everything.
Right. Yeah.
Again, because it was destroyed.
Well,
wow.
to get back to your question, that's like my favorite theory ever, because I feel like I was almost born questioning evolution. And, you know, I'm a real sort of science brain person, so it took a long time for me to come back around and be like, no, this does not answer all the questions. There's no way. There's no way. So it's like, from the beginning, I questioned, but I look around and see people, and I'm like, you're telling me we came from those things? I can kind of buy it, but there's a lot that doesn't add up about that, you know? So.
Well, and just because we have similar like form and function and whatever, doesn't necessarily mean we like literally came from each other. We could still come from the same source. Like when you're an artist, your art all tends to have similar characteristics. It's not because it like grew out of each other. It's just came from the same source.
Are both like 85% water.
Yeah.
How similar are they in reality?
Awesome. This is why I love these chats. I learned so much.
Also,
great.
if anybody wants to, a good guy to look up is a dude named Lloyd Pye. Like, he got this weird cancer and died a few years ago, and a lot of people think that he was, you know, given cancer somehow. But one of his he was famous for the star. Speaking about aliens, he was got famous for the Star Child skull, which is a skull that was found and given to him, and they had this thing tested, DNA tested. The skull's got fibers in the bone, and it's a really weird skull, right? They called it the Star Child because of the size, but it turned out to not be a child's skull. It was a fully formed, fully developed skull. But his theory on sort of alien intervention is a really good one. If you can find a YouTube presentation, go check that out, because it talks about chromosomes and DNA and everything, and that there's clearly no way that we could have simply evolved from an ape-like ancestor without intervention. So,
just like the corn. See, Claude, there's a reason why I put corn in that question. Just like corn couldn't exist how it is today without like severe genetic manipulation at a time when we supposedly didn't have that technology. It just goes from like wild something, the nearest thing we can find is like not even similar, and then all of a sudden we have corn.
Well, as above, so below, we've been doing that for centuries and centuries, selectively breeding plants and animals, horse husbandry.
But we have evidence of every other thing we've bred and all the steps in between, like we can see the process. And with corn, we can't.
Well, that's because the corn woman brought it down.
See? The corn woman. And like, but seriously, so like the corn woman could be some extraterrestrial that came down and was like, yo, this is going to help you guys a lot. Here's some corn.
Maybe. I'm not
corn. I'm serious. There's evidence. There's God, I wish I could remember who wrote a whole entire, she's an actual like doctorate of whatever plant stuff. And she wrote an entire like thesis on it. I can't remember who it is though. Someone's probably like yelling it somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
All right, so oh yeah, this is a fun one. So what do you guys make of this idea that a lot of sightings throughout time, if you look back at the records of the types of things people were seeing in the sky, it tends to be technology that we then see like 10 or 20 years later on the civilian scene. So for example, like airships or blimps were seen for a while, and then like 10 years later, we actually had airships and blimps. But before that, people had never thought of that or seen, anything like that. And they'd look up in the sky and see it and they'd think it was aliens. What do you guys think about that type of thing? Now it's like fancy flying, like supersonic jet things or whatever. And like, maybe that's just what's in our future.
It's one of my favorite subjects, I think, especially when you start talking about ancient civilizations that, may have been far more advanced than we are right now. Maybe they're guiding us along. And it's kind of ties back into the question earlier. How are alien civilizations messing with the human race? Well, maybe we're being guided to a specific purpose. And then obviously you can kind of take that into the whole breakaway civilization thing, especially when you start talking about the blimps, NIMS Aero Club.
NIMS, which is NYMZA.
Right. And in Texas in the 1800s, people saw things flying around in the sky near Sunset, Texas, and they were gone. And then a few years later, we have the Wright brothers taking off in their airplanes.
Yeah.
We have dirigibles all of a sudden. And then not even within 50 years, we're having an entire war fought in the skies in World War II.
In the airs.
So,
yeah.
It's,
well, and think about flying saucers too. Flying saucers were right before we kind of developed like more stealthy, like jet sort of like capabilities. So.
Ooh, can I add something right here?
Yeah.
So the flying saucer thing, it got coined by now I have a brain fart. I can't remember the guy's Kenneth Arnold, right? And his thing, he called them flying saucers because they flew like a saucer skipping on a lake, right? Like they just flew in that sort of bouncy way. But what he saw were not saucers. What he saw were almost like batwing shaped silvery aircraft.
Oh wow! So it was more like the V or like an angular sort of thing.
More like a V. If you can picture literally a batwing with the first part, the front part is just round and there's sort of little cutouts.
Oh.
So almost like, if there's any aircraft buffs, like a Horton, I forget, I think it's a Horton M1, anyway, something like that. What always threw me for a loop is he saw those, I think in 47, and it's just the timing of it, man. It was right after the war, right after, we went in and took all the technology the Germans were working on, and next thing you know, it's like, poof, hey, we have flying saucers. It's like, that was never even, they weren't even saucers. They were just aircraft that were oddly shaped and flew like saucers skipping on a lake. So I feel like our powers that be took advantage of the situation. Now we got a good cover for all the toys we're going to have to play with over public heads.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
interesting.
You take that into all of the German scientists that came to the United States after the war, bringing that technology with them, and not even 30 years later, we have a stealth fighter aircraft.
Yeah. Well, and anti-gravitics, weren't the Nazis working on that as well?
Yeah.
So, why do you think it would have that weird bouncing effect? Like,
I'm thinking it's probably related to the way it flew. A lot of these, and this is just my aviation buff side, but a lot of these cutting edge stuff, they have, I guess, what you call hybrid technology. So if you think of an airplane, it's like, oh, it's got a propeller or it's got a jet engine. Some of these have a combination of propeller or jet engine, or whatever combination of technology they're working on. So like when that first came out into the public consciousness, they released a whole list of facts with it. One of those facts was that it had charged the leading edge of the wing positively and the exhaust negatively, very, very high voltage. And that goes right in with electrogravity, right? So the theory was that it was a hybrid technology. Those facts seem to disappear out of the public consciousness after about 3 or 4 years, and you can't really find it now. And if you do find it, they say, oh, it's just to control the exhaust flow to make it less visible to radar, which sounds like complete bullshit to me. But
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about the Aurora project, yeah?
well, no, actually, the B2, the Spirit. Yeah. The Aurora, I'm gonna go ahead and probably I'll probably get a phone call at some point. I used to work with a guy because I worked in the aviation industry a little bit. And I worked with a guy whose wife worked at Area 51 back when they were flying the stealth fighters, and he actually confirmed that Aurora is a real thing. So take that.
For sure. You know, there's a lot of theories and speculation behind what the Aurora is, but if you ever, it's hard to even see with chemtrails now, but you know, you see the contrail, and it's going to look like almost donuts in the sky because
donuts on a roof. Yeah.
Right? So it's like, how do I even explain how it accelerates? It's blast acceleration, so each blast is more powerful than the last, and that might account for some of that skipping motion.
Right. They call it the pulse detonation wave.
Yes.
So it does that. It's just a little series of explosions.
Like shooting a bullet, and as the bullet's flying through the air, it has explosions happening behind it that speed it up even more.
Right.
So
Interesting.
there's we'll get a visit from the later tonight.
From the Men in Black.
Don't never take me alive. You heard it here first. Never take me alive.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's get into a weird area of talking about aliens and the similarities that people report between alien abductions, fairy encounters over many, many years, many thousands of years, or hundreds of years, or whatever, paranormal activity. So just all kinds of strange things and connections there, and then altered states of consciousness and the entities that people encounter in those states. What do you guys make of the kind of interconnections between all of that?
I think it's about interdimensionality, and a lot of these beings that you're speaking of are working on interdimensional planes, and can often, that's why they can apparate and disappear, reappear, because of their frequential level and their frequencies and their vibrations. And I think that a lot of how we perceive these interdimensional beings depends on our lens and how they're kind of showing themselves to us. If that makes any sense. They're like how it's kind of like when you receive a message from an angelic being, how they will show you, they have a message, but they'll show it to several different people in different ways, depending on how they perceive life.
Yeah, it's kind of like the idea of when people have near-death experiences, like depending on what culture they're in, they'll see their specific higher being or higher power instead of, like not everyone's going to see Jesus. If they're not Christian, they're going to see something else.
Yeah, or like, how the goddess energy has been represented in different cultures by different names.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all metaphor for the same thing, basically. And it's
could be
people. Well, describing it the best way they know how. Ezekiel saw a wheel in the sky, and it had 4 faces on it, whatever. Someone in the 1800s, he's a blimp.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lakota said they saw flying shields, and that's how they would come in their shields.
Right.
So that's how they saw it.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. So like the fairies and fairy encounters in general would just be the same exact beings. It's just being interpreted in a different way through a different lens at a different time.
And I think, yeah, I think the link between that is the orbs, because a lot of extraterrestrial star beings, they will also be perceived as orbs. A lot of paranormal investigations, you will find orbs, and in fairy rings and things like that, you will find orbs. And so I think it's the frequency and the energy that's manifesting into an orb that is for certain people to be able to perceive, and other people wouldn't see the orb, they would see something else. Yeah. And some people actually see beings inside the orbs.
So as somebody in the 1400s may have seen a fairy or an elf or a gnome or whatever it is, the term gray or alien as we know it today really didn't start existing until the mid 1900s, you think?
Yeah.
So we're almost prescribing or ascribing our own mythos onto these same beings that have been described in other mythoses for generations, for centuries.
Right.
So, we've created our own pantheon, more or less.
And I like that it can explain the seeing technology like as right before it's appearing to us, because that's something closer to what we would be used to.
Right.
What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. I kind of feel like that's probably the truest form of encounters is with beings like that, because like everybody said, I feel like they will manifest in whatever form is relevant to the to the situation in a way. You know what I mean? We live in a post sci-fi world on purpose. You know what I mean? Like science fiction is given to us by a few sort of purveyors of science fiction, So now that it's in our consciousness, it's like, oh, they're gonna show up as aliens. Although I kind of feel like that maybe
it's driven by what we talked about earlier, about the seasons and the tides, cosmic cycles. During one specific season, they'll, either something manifests in one way, or it's a completely different manifest of consciousness. Maybe you're seeing a different alien during a different season.
Yeah. Entirely possible.
Yeah. It could be kind of a little bit of everything mixed in there too, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other.
There's a lot of similarities between some of these abduction experiences and a lot of the fairy experiences. The people that have them, there may be different instruments involved or whatever the case is. Like you're not supposed to eat fairy food because they'll keep you there or something. And a lot of people have a situation where an alien will try to feed them something, and because they ate it, everything gets screwed up or whatever. I don't know. There's just a lot of
well, the missing time thing, like some people would go be taken by the fairies and they would come back like 100 years later. Right. Like they just cut the time wrong, or, they'd be come back wearing like really strange clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
A thing I was listening to, probably on one of Greg's shows, was about fairy breeding. Like they take humans sometimes to breed with.
Oh yeah, there's that similarity too, with like the hybrid alien program and then the fairy breeding.
Yeah, that threw me for a loop too. It was like, oh, look at this, it's the same deal. Just
that is such a trip. So there's a book by Graham Hancock called Supernatural, and he actually compares, like, if anybody's interested in looking more at the similarities between all of those different aspects of fairy encounters and alien encounters, and then he also compares it to experiences in altered states. So it's a really interesting book. He goes kind of in depth on all that. So let's talk about screen memories. What do you guys know about screen memories?
It's false memories, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the idea that some people, for example, will say like, oh yeah, that's crazy how last night we were driving and we saw that 4-foot tall owl. And like later in like hypnotic regression, they realized that it was actually a gray on the side of the road and they were abducted or something. Yeah. So it's like a fake memory that was maybe placed there to hide something.
Well, I know for sure I have at least one screen memory, and it's not even about owls or deer or something. It was something that my parents did that I know that my parents did not do, and it's just a really bizarre memory. And I was kind of doing this meditation thing and thinking about that, and the sort of information that was given me was that's what that is. That's a screen memory. That's not a real thing that happened.
Wow. So what do you think it was screening out?
I don't know, because in this memory, my parents fed me something that they would like have never fed me, like something you weren't even supposed to eat.
Yeah.
You know, in memory, I'm just sitting there between them, my mom on the right side, dad on the left. They're like, "Here, eat this thing," and I ate it, and I'm like, "Oh, it tastes like dough." It was this dumbest memory, but it's
Yeah.
that clear memory of it, and in meditating about it, it was like, that's not real. That's not a real memory. That's not what happened. So now I have to follow that thread and see where that goes.
So was that a recent revelation, or?
Yeah, probably. This whole alien thing is a fairly recent revelation for me, because I was working with a massage therapist who got a few back issues, and I guess she's sensitive or psychic or something, and she told me about an experience that I had.
Wow.
So I didn't mention anything to her, and it was the experience itself was, I had a dream, quote unquote, that I thought the sun had come up, and it hadn't come up. And I woke up the next morning. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Because the way my bed was situated, it was a window right there, and that's what would have happened. Is it would have got bright, and I would have seen the light and everything. And I woke up the next morning with bruises across my leg. She told me about this experience without me telling her about it.
Wow.
And that was kind of like, holy shit, you know about that? Now I gotta look into this now. Okay, great.
Wow.
That's what made me even come to grips with the potentiality for something like an abduction experience. So I'm not prepared to accept that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things I can live with. That wasn't one of them, but I got other people telling me this experience actually happened. So now I gotta open my scope a little bit.
Now you got to figure it out. Like there's some sort of terror, I think, in that, and I think it's why it's probably easier to put screen memories in people's minds, is because people don't really want to believe that they could be taken against their will, or
Right.
if that's what's happening.
That can happen naturally too, though. I mean, think about PTSD. You got people come back from war and they've invented a scenario in their minds of the way something happened, and then through therapy, they're able to discover that's not the way it happened at all. And same thing with, like, I don't know, rape encounters, molestation encounters, MK Ultra. You name it. The human mind has a capacity to invent scenarios, and you were talking about it earlier, Jeff. Creating our own realities in our minds, and that's part of it. It becomes real to you. So maybe it's a defense mechanism in a way, because either you're not ready to accept something that happened to you right now, and subconsciously you realize that, and it's going to come back to you when you're ready to accept it, and that manifests in the form of a massage therapist saying, "You're ready to accept this."
Right. It's yours if you want. It's like, damn it, that was a real thing. Oh,
shoot! Now I have to deal with that.
But the way life works, things will pop up and you realize, and it completely changes your entire view of what you thought life was.
Yeah.
I know I've had plenty of those. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it could also be merging timelines, like with the Mandela effect. Like something that you thought you experienced but has now changed, and you're like, wait, but maybe you did actually experience on an alternate timeline, and now those timelines have merged.
Yeah, good point.
That's also happened to me. I had a situation with my wife where we did not watch the movie, right? And she was convinced that we watched this movie. She watched this movie with me somewhere, but I did not watch it with her.
Wow.
In fact, I've never seen the movie. And as a matter of fact, I remember the movie. It was the movie named Brick with Gordon Levitt. And I've never watched it, so I can't tell you anything about it. But she's 100% convinced that we watched it together. And I'm like, you wouldn't even watch that unless I made you watch it. It was the kind of movie I would watch, but yet I've never seen it, and she saw it with me.
Oh my God. I can't wait to do the Mandela Effect episode. It's going to be lit.
Isn't that kind of missing time also?
Yeah.
All right. So
it's all interconnected.
Totally. If an alien race was sufficiently advanced enough to travel in interstellar space, do you think they'd spend this much time anally probing humans?
Maybe they're perverts and they've got a thing for goodie.
Well, maybe if they were the global elite aliens,
They love anal probes.
I got a good one.
And their pedophilia with the children abductions and, the implants and all that good stuff.
True.
Horrible stuff.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, and it actually ties in really good with what we were just talking about with screen memories and whatnot. Repressed memories. this type of thing is what we would consider one of the most horrific taboos, in humanity for most people. And maybe it's a sort of metaphor that's created in the mind to this horrible thing happened to me, but this one I can understand, so this is what happened.
Yeah. Like you're taken from your bed at night against your will, but you can't really understand what's going on. So your brain is just like, okay, it's as if you were anally probed.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't really understand, because as a human, I can't logically think of why an alien would want to do this. And further than that,
Yeah.
is this one of those comedic things that's just kind of tied to the this piece of the conspiracy subculture?
Like almost in order to dismiss it more easily or something.
Or are there really that many accounts of people being butt probed?
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good point, is that I don't think I'm like the most amazingly researched at this topic, but I have a long history of like looking into it, and I have not actually heard that many stories where someone gets anally probed. And yet it's such a strong trope when these things come up. So it's a really interesting, I do think it would be more to discredit the people talking about it than anything else.
Or maybe they were getting their temperature taken.
Yeah. Babies.
That's what they used to do with all the babies. So what if it was, some creepy doctors doing their little tests? And
God, why did they ever take temperature that way? Is there no better way to take temperature? Like, that seems so fucked up.
Why did they circumcise? Yeah. Good questions.
I hear a lot of people talk about how abduction experiences are actually regressed memories from when you were born. So that actually would make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the first things they do. They take
the probing.
Right? And you have, they're probing your entire body, making sure you're okay. They paddle you, and it's all these
bright lights
and all this shine down over you. Maybe.
Well, and it's a crazy ass world you've never been in.
Here's a question we need to find the answer to. As far as who's getting probed, is it the males or the females? Because we've got prostate glands up there, and you can electrostimulate that and extract
semen.
So
he does have a point.
Good point.
It's some kind
shit.
That'd be the easiest way to get it.
Like Bridget Nielsen. Have you guys heard of Bridget Nielsen?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So she has videos on YouTube talking about how she was taken, and she's like a famous model, and how she was taken and they took her ovaries and they like literally she has children up in outer space. And I don't know if these are like literally aliens or maybe they're some kind of elite doctor forces that are out there trying to do their own genetic manipulations and things. But literally she has stories that she airs on YouTube videos where she's talking about this happening, and like they have babies, she has children that they've taken her eggs and they've taken people's sperms and they've done things. And so I wouldn't put it past what's going on if that wouldn't be the reason why for procreation.
Right. That's another common trope, is that it's for some sort of genetic program of some sort, like hybrids or maybe even just to propagate a species that's dying in the future, if there's that time travel aspect tied in.
Yeah, she said she has a hybrid babies. I think that's the title or something.
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple of different videos and articles. People that have been abducted talk about, they actually have children, and that's part of where the whole starseed thing comes from. You hear people call themselves starseeds. It's I'm part alien, or I have a part alien children. And
you're a little bit quiet, Claude. I don't know if you can turn up the.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Cool. So I don't know. What I was saying is there's just a lot of different stories of people saying very similar things about that, and I didn't even consider that. Especially what you were saying, Lindsay, about possibly propagating a dying species.
Or if it is military abductions, then maybe it's just for like cloning and slave
superhuman
or superhuman creation. Yeah, who knows what in that case too.
Well, we do know that I subscribe to the fiction writes reality. So we had an entire set of movies called Star Wars where they talked about Clone Wars.
Clone Wars, yeah. Yeah. A lot of people talk about clones and cloning centers and underground bases. So, I mean, that could totally be it too. Especially if you're taking a whole ovary, that's a lot. That's a lot of babies.
Well, we also know that the government doesn't necessarily follow the rules that they give the rest of us. So one of the main things about cloning, they've cloned sheep and mice and
monkey.
monkey.
And that's what they're telling us.
Dogs, cats.
So
Yeah.
That's the key.
Large scale human cloning going on, and we have no idea about it.
We should just assume that there is, because we know that they lie to us, and we know that the technology we see is like always like decades behind what they're actually doing. So we should just assume that they are. That's what I think. Be safe.
We know that massive underground bases exist.
Mhm.
We know that trillions of dollars are missing out of the U.S. budget. Where is this money going? What are they using all those bases for? So
Yeah. Well, so how do you guys think that cattle mutilations and other animal mutilations tie into all of this?
Chupacabra.
Hey, I wrote that down. That's what I was going to say. I think it's a possibility that there's bad entities and there's good entities, but I think that's a limited way to look at it. I think we need to look at it more of a earthly way to look at it. You know, we have animals that are mindless, like mindless is the right word, but predator species, like a wolf or a bear.
Primal.
Primal. Thank you. And maybe they're phasing in and out of our reality, just like these aliens.
Bigfoot.
But they're doing it naturally. Bigfoot.
Not that Bigfoot would ever do that, but
Maybe there's different tribes of big feet. Like,
maybe.
Bigfoot or big feet.
Yeah.
Sasquatch.
Sasquatches. Yeah, it's just weird. The technology you would have needed to do some of these cattle mutilations as early as they were happening. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's happening all throughout history. So, if the rest of the phenomena seems to have gone all throughout time, as far as we can tell. But cattle mutilations seem to be relatively recent, and so it makes me think that that would be more of a human endeavor, perhaps.
Maybe about crazy people going out and murdering cattle and blaming it on.
But seriously, it's like to get the tissue that they're taking and the pattern they're taking it in with as little blood loss or no blood loss, that you need really advanced technology. So like it can't just be random people unless it's a breakaway civilization, or it would have to be like governments with technologies that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah, some cauterized and stuff on the cattle mutilations. Looks like a laser cutter or something. So.
Right.
Now, if you think about this, humans have been drinking cow's milk for I don't know how many thousands of years, right? So is it possible that we're somehow, I don't know, more genetically linked to cows than it seems on the surface?
Oh, and we need that tissue or can use that tissue for something?
Yeah, because you think about there have been people, especially in the early days of stuff like heart surgery, where they put a pig valve or something, and the body wouldn't reject it. You can actually use that, so it might be part of. For all we know, us and cows can share more DNA than we know. And the human species is more of a chimera than anything else. Oh. So if it is alien related, and maybe there are cows in our great grand history somewhere, or a cow. Who knows?
Well, they say we have how much in common with a pig? It's ridiculous.
It's like 96 or something percent. So. Well, Timmy has a good point. Whether it's alien or human, it could be that they're testing for toxicity for something, because the tissues that they're taking are always the soft tissues, and the soft tissues are always the tissues that are going to, I guess, react more. Or I don't know necessarily that the soft tissues would be what would store the most or be the best for testing, but I don't know. Maybe she's saying that they're testing it to see how their toxins react to it, like testing toxins on it. I don't know.
Like a canary in a coal mine.
To scare the cows and harvest adrenochrome for them.
I feel so bad for the cows, because they're terrorized the next day. Like the cows who are still alive are like fucking PTSD cows.
Did you see what happened to Joey? Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah. He floated up in the air and then he dropped in a pile of blood.
Well, I think that's the point. What if they're trying to figure out a different way to harvest adrenochrome? So they're trying cows.
Maybe, yeah.
You guys ever read Hunt for the Skinwalker, that book?
No, but I've heard a lot about that phenomenon.
One of the stories they relate is that this is how fast the stupid cow mutilation happened. It would have been less than 10 minutes. Like somebody was on an ATV, they went past a certain area with the cow, they were on their way back, there were pieces of the cow scattered, 100 yards apart. Nobody even knew how or when or anything about that.
Dude, the Skinwalker shit is terrifying. But the thing that we could do a whole episode on that too. But I don't think that's necessarily alien related. Like that phenomena goes back so far in time, and it's all like even the natives in that area were like, don't go in that area, it's cursed, right?
Yeah,
So
as far as I know.
I don't know. Then again, aliens and the entities that perform curses could be similar. So what about crop circles? What do you guys think about crop circles? What's the point of them, or what force is creating them?
I don't think we can tell what force is creating them. I don't know that we have the technology to do that, or at least that we know about. But I think that it's universal language. We know that cymatics exist in everything. You can look at a human skin cell close enough, it's a geometric pattern, geometric shape.
Mhm.
So it would
Sacred geometry.
sacred geometry would only make sense that would be a interdimensional language. So maybe they're trying to impart some sort of wisdom or some sort of warning or something to us, but they're only able to do it at certain times in certain places. I don't know.
Mhm.
And then it's
Yeah.
pretty obvious also when you see the fake ones versus the real ones. You know, the real ones are so perfectly laid out. It's just
Yeah.
it's not off at
They're-
all by a single degree. And then
You're-
And there's a frequency change in the crop.
right.
Yes. There's also the exploded nodes. Like the rest of the
Yeah.
stalk is completely intact, but the nodes are like exploded from the inside out, which would be, as far as we know, impossible.
Should be absolutely impossible. So the next question would be, are they actually created by you? You know, you always see the picture, this rendition of a UFO hovering over a cornfield.
You're a little quiet again. I can't hear you very well.
That's weird. I apologize.
Sorry.
You always see the picture, the artist rendition of a UFO hovering over a field and shooting a beam of light down, and that creates a crop circle. But we never actually see any photographs of that. So,
Well, we have footage that's interesting of a bunch of orbs going
The
through
orbs.
a field.
the
Yeah.
orbs, yeah, and that's what I was saying. I think, wondering if is this done by a group of individual little orbs rather than one big thing? And
Yes.
I'm going to do the art and they disappear. So we never actually see one in the process of being made either. So it almost seems instantaneous.
Well, that video with the orbs is it being instantaneously made. Like the orbs come in, there's nothing, and as they like move around, you kind of see like something, and then when they're gone, it's there.
I'm looking it up because that's cool.
It's very cool.
I don't know how easy it is to find anymore. It's one of the many videos I wish I downloaded back in the day. But so I wonder if those designs, like you're saying, they're universal and certain patterns are like sacred geometry. And I wonder if they're almost like instilling a certain vibration on the planet or in that area for a certain reason. Hopefully benevolent.
That's like creating an energetic site.
Yeah. Or like drawing the energy out of that site. Like maybe that's a ley line, or maybe I don't know.
Maybe it's like a download for Earth's ascension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope for ascension rather than the other direction.
Well, most of the messages, they really seem to be of higher consciousness. They seem to be messages of sacred geometry, messages of frequency and vibration, and messages of like interdimensional communication. So those fall along with what we're going through with human ascension and the Earth ascension, essentially, as well.
Good point.
I've never really considered this before, but I wonder if it's possible you go back and look at sites like Stonehenge or maybe the big ring megalith sites, if they were copycatting crop circles. Is that possible?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, maybe they were taught those shapes by things like that. Yeah,
Like
because
a
that's one of
crop
those
staple.
things. Like you wouldn't know how many crop circles existed over time because they go away when the crop dies. But we do have stories of the mowing devil. You guys have heard of that?
No.
It's like before crop circles, people knew about the mowing devil and they'd go out and their crops would be all fucked up. But I mean, it was at a time where they couldn't get up in the air to see what the design was, but they could just tell that there was large areas that had been mowed down.
That's rad. There's even the old when is this from? Newspaper articles with artist renditions of the mowed crop circle. That is incredible.
Well, and then you have the Nazca lines too, and those are really ancient.
Oh yeah.
And they span such exponential amounts of land, and they are seen only from space, and they're so precise in the pictures that they give us and the lines, and it's very, very amazing.
It's
Oh,
fascinating.
let's see. This one's really old. This is from 1678. It's a
There you go. Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like it's back in like medieval or just like a long ass time ago.
No doubt. That's wild.
So, and that's just the random one that I heard of. I wonder if like cultures going back, just like we have fairy tales or other things that seem like alien interaction, like there, I wonder if there are stories of crop circles and they're just kind of harder to find. You know, because what would you call it? Like the mowing devil was what it was called because that's when people were mowing things. But I don't know what you would call it going back even further in time and in other cultures.
Well, here's one. So I don't know if you remember a while back, I was sharing a bunch of pictures of Kazakhstan, Iran, and Iraq. You know, I was on Google Earth looking at the desert areas, and anybody can do this. And there are bizarre shapes out in the middle of the desert that are perfect concentric circles, rings within rings, and they're obviously ancient. How big
Yeah.
So
You're talking about like in like West Africa, there's like a set of concentric circles, and some people think it's Atlantis.
oh yeah. So there's that one. But this is more specifically in Kazakhstan and Iran. You know,
Are you
there's
talking about the star?
no, if you go out in the desert on Google Earth and you look just at random places out in the middle of the desert, there are just bizarre geometric patterns and shapes.
Wow.
So none of it's, I mean, you can go look at it right now. It's crazy. So
That is so interesting.
kind of wild.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like crop circles, but in the sand, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
And then if you went there, like I wonder what the sand it would have changed, maybe like to glass, or I don't know.
Yeah, like Moldavite.
Yes. Yeah.
Where's it come from? Exactly. So, and how would a crop circle react to, because we know what it does to plants, how would it react to stone and crystal and dirt? You know, it's going to create,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that'd be fascinating if we knew the technology and we could check it out. So, does anybody want to share? I think we shared a few experiences, but does anybody want to share any other experiences they've had with aliens or something that might be aliens?
I've got a few if you want to listen.
Yeah, tell us one or two.
Okay. Well, I'll start with a dream that I had. This is vivid from my childhood. I remember standing out. Well, I don't even know if it's a dream or a memory that I have. It's so realistic in my head that I've just remembered it my entire life. I was standing out in the backyard of my grandparents' house and looking up, and there's just what I can only describe as Star Destroyers, ships, something just flying overhead, and they're just filling the sky, and they're just going across. And I just remember feeling, getting chills and kind of feeling in awe of the entire situation. Did that really happen? Was it a dream? I don't know at this point. I must have been like 6 or 7 years old. And then, so
Oh, so it's like a swarm of them.
yeah. But it was just like almost information just flying across, you know. But that's kind of a bizarre one. Maybe that's just a little kid watching too much TV, and it stuck with me all these years. I don't know, but I've seen a couple of actual UFOs, what I would call UFOs, orbs in the sky. And I may have shared this one with you guys before on another episode, Lindsay. But I would think I was about 11 years old at Walmart around 9 o'clock at night. You know, it was dark. We're walking in, me and my dad and my sister and my brother were walking in, and there's people standing there, and they're all looking up, and we kind of, what are y'all looking at? And we all look up, and there's just there's an orange orb floating in the middle of the sky. Just, I can't even tell you how high up it was. It wasn't very high, and then it split off into 5, and then that 5 split off. I guess it would be like 10. And then it would go back down to 1, and it would split into 2 different, completely separate orbs, and then both of those would split off into 5 and 10, and back down to 1, and then they were gone. Later that night, it was ended up being on NBC News out of Abilene, Texas, KTAB, and the Dyess Air Force Base said they were testing flares. There were
How
no
convenient.
jets, right? Exactly. So there were no jets in the area. And later in life, I joined the military and I worked on F-16s. That's not how flares act. I've seen.
Yeah.
So I actually have anecdotal experience of what flares actually do. That was not a flare.
That's awesome.
Completely, just still, and it would split off and then go back down into 1. But it wasn't a craft, though.
Well, I also love how it's always like after the fact. Oh, we were testing flares. Oh,
Yeah,
we were
they've got
doing
a good
this thing.
excuse.
And it's like, why didn't you tell us beforehand then, assholes? Like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah, that was my sister. When this reminds me, it's very brief. My sister thought she saw a UFO out down in California over the water, went to look it up, and the government said it was chemtrail markers. Then she called me up and apologized and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I guess chemtrails are real because the government told me that the UFO I saw was a chemtrail marker, and I know it was a UFO, so they're covering it with this." And so it was just so funny.
Wow.
How ironic. They're like,
was-
we'd rather admit chemtrails than aliens, so it was chemtrail stuff.
Yeah. And
Weird.
now she listens to me about all sorts of things that she never would have before, so it's great.
It is funny the things people think you're crazy about, and then they experience something and they're like, oh shit.
They're like, now what do you think?
Jeez.
What
Yeah,
about you, Harmony?
continue.
Do you want to share one of yours?
Sure, I would love to. So one of the experiences I had was at Star Knowledge Conference, and we were in this amazing geodesic dome, and we were doing ceremony with probably about 100 people, and we had just done big powwow singing, and we were gathering for the chief's birthday, and we were doing a bunch of raising of energy, and we started taking pictures. And I noticed in my camera that there were a few orbs, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I kept taking pictures, and I literally took thousands of orb pictures in my camera. They just kept appearing and appearing, and I made a slideshow of it, and that's on YouTube. You can check that out. It says like orbs at Mount Shasta or something like that. It was incredible. And I mean, the energy was palpable. I didn't actually visually see anything with my naked eyes, but I did see it through the camera, and it was really amazing. And other people were catching it through their cameras as well. And then another experience my husband had is this was at a different Star Knowledge conference, which was interesting, down in Arizona, right by Sedona. And he woke up one night, and we were in the hotel room, and he woke up and he thought he saw me sitting at the end of his bed and the light on in the bathroom. And he thought that I was sitting there and I was like glowing backlit from the light. But then he looked over to me where I was laying in the bed, and I was still there sleeping. And then he looked back, and all of a sudden the room went dark, and there was no longer a being there sitting on our bed. And, you know, the people we discussed this with, you know, they were like, that was definitely a star being, an angelic being. They're one and the same. And it was a really cool experience that I, again, didn't see, but my husband saw, and I was kind of a part of because he thought it was me, which is kind of interesting because it could have been an interdimensional me, or it could have been a star being or an angelic, something really cool like
Or you
that.
just have similar energy to that star being, and so it seemed like you.
It said it had long flowing hair that was blonde and glowing and about my size. And
Interesting.
You know what comes to mind for me is that scene in Lord of the Rings whenever she's getting ready to try to heal Frodo, and like she looks like a normal little elf, and then he opens his eyes and he sees her as like this angelic elf with this long flowing hair. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's almost like
that's awesome.
seeing things on a different vibration level, I guess you would say.
Mhm. Or seeing your higher self or something.
Right.
Ooh,
Yeah, I've seen that picture you're talking about with the orbs, and I know there's a lot of pictures where people are like, wow, look at this, and it really is like an artifact of the camera or lighting or, you know, something like that. But I've seen the pictures you're talking about, and it's like you can't describe it or you can't explain it away. There are thousands of them in the photograph, and
they're like between the people, and it's wow.
Yeah, that's one of the best pictures of orbs I've ever seen in my life for sure. So that one was pretty amazing.
They're raw images too, absolutely uncut raw images posted, you know, years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. Isetti Ranch, I don't know if you guys have heard of Isetti. It's here in Washington State. That's where Lindsay and I are. And they have, it's a portal, an interdimensional portal there. And James Gilliand, I've actually met him, or James Gilliand, I think. I met him at Star Knowledge Conference, and he just posted this amazing video on his page, on his Facebook, the other day of a powering up on his birthday. And they were filming this starship or something, and an orb, big green orb, and then all of a sudden it just powered up, and then it went back down, and everyone was like, "Wow, it was amazing!" So they all saw it. I'm not sure what it was, but it was incredible. And Mount Adams has been known for, since the ancient times as being a portal. So it's a really a cool phenomena.
Mount Rainier too, right? For some reason, I thought you said he was on Mount Rainier.
It's at the base of Mount Adams.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. You'd
Right,
think I would
it's
know
very
more
close.
about that.
We got to go there sometime. That'll be
Yeah,
awesome.
we should. So Jeff, what do you want to share any more?
Oh man, I got way too many stories, but
I'm with you. I'm like, which one?
yeah, exactly, right. So there was that one with the bright light, and I woke up with bruises. That was an experience. I had another time where I was coming out of sleep, and I swear I didn't even know how to describe this thing. It was a machine of some kind. It was a mechanical thing, roughly triangular, hovering about 5 feet over my bed. And it just had a bunch of weird little flaps and things that would pop open and little mechanical eyes that would move, and it just sort of faded out of existence. I wasn't dreaming about it. I just woke up and saw it there. So I have no idea what that was.
Yeah, that's a weird one too. Like that is not one that I haven't heard things like that before.
I can't even, I can barely even describe it. I'd imagine it looks like if you were an illustrator in like the 1800s, it was that style of drawing.
Like steampunk almost?
Yeah, almost like that, but it existed in 3D space, and it was mostly metallic.
Weird.
So for example, the valve was like a little tiny hand that would pop open.
Weird.
And it was just, that's like those kinds of things litter my entire semi-conscious life, whether it be dreaming, coming out of a dream, and I'm not even sure I can even call some of these things dreams, like the whole sun coming up, white light experience. That was one. I had another, and I'm going to throw my entire life under the bus right here with this one. But I had but whatever. I'm in good company with weirdos. So
hell yeah.
So this particular, speaking about aliens, right? So I had this dream where I'm on an alien ship. It's a dream. I can't really even call it a dream anymore.
Dream. Yeah.
I'm on this alien ship, and I don't see the aliens, but they tell me that there's this thing in it's almost like the face hugger thing from the movie Alien, right? In this tank, and then I would have to do something with it later, I'm like, I'm not doing that. So they escort me to another place where there's like a creature on a stainless steel table, but this thing's probably 4 or 5 feet long, and it looked like a goat human hybrid, like a sheep human hybrid.
Ew.
Right? Like, you guys are freaking me the fuck out. Basically, I'm saying that in the dream.
It's like Pan.
To myself. It's like, what?
Like Pan. The little flute playing goat.
I guess, but it had
alphabet maybe.
Or was it a goat face?
No, it was more of a goat face. I didn't see hands specifically, and it had more. Even though it was large, it had more of an embryonic look, where the skin didn't look like it was fully developed. It's very pale, translucent, and that was
disturbing.
That was very.
It's very disturbing.
So, do they tend to have you had many dreams like that one? Dreams?
No.
Oh, okay.
I dreamt of a lot of UFO stuff because as a kid I was really obsessed, and this is also what makes me think I'm somehow an abductee. I'm just in denial about it. When the movie Close Encounters came out, I had this little Casio, and I used to play that theme all the time. My mom would tease me. She's like, "They're gonna come get me." I'm like, "Good, they can take me back home."
Oh.
Love it. That's crazy.
Take me back home.
Constant. And I also have another experience where I know people talk about this this sort of praying mantis thing. Like, I've never seen any actual aliens in my dreams, but I feel like I have a memory that I was schooled or something. Because as a kid, I had knowledge that this was before the internet was invented. Kids, I'm old. Anyways, so there was no way
are here.
other than cracking open an old encyclopedia. There was no way for me to learn things. I'm like 8 or 9.
Encyclopedia Britannica?
Yeah.
Well, I had this sort of knowledge of things that I had no recollection of learning for a while there, for a long time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Downloads.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a stupid thing in my arm. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that you're semi-conscious, Jeff. I would say you're like multi-conscious, if anything.
Oh, cool. I like it. Multi.
I want to ask a question real quick because y'all spent a lot of time talking about orbs, and I've had one experience with an orb where my buddy and I was wondering if they're the same thing. My buddy and I used to go out and ghost hunt at cemeteries randomly all over the place. We go during the day because we're chickens, cowards. So we went out and we're taking a bunch of photographs. This is probably in the 2000s, and he comes over to my house real late, probably 2 o'clock in the morning that night. He had been going through the photos, and he had a whole string of photos around this one little area that was full of these perfect orbs, and you could watch them moving up and down, and it was wild. So, and then we just spent all this time talking about orbs flying through the air. Why is this one subset of orbs considered paranormal, and this other subset of orbs considered UFO related?
Yes. I think people are still in a place where they are thinking of everything materialistically, and so, or through the lens of materialism. And so when you talk about aliens, it has to be like a creature that came here from another planet. It can't be interdimensional consciousness or spirit consciousness, or however we want to talk about that, you know?
Right. So could consider the nature of graveyards, I guess, cemeteries. So much emotion happens there on a daily basis. You know, people weeping and crying. There's a certain type of energy in those places. Maybe that's why these things will apparate so often there. Just a thought. And then if you think about, Mount Shasta, it's got a reputation for what it is now. So you have people flocking there all year long, every year, looking to see these orbs. They're manifesting reality, seeing the orbs. Maybe.
Well, and if certain places are portals, like we see a lot of alien ships allegedly coming in and through and around the sun that are like huge and giant, or some of them tiny. And so like maybe the sun is a portal, but maybe also there's energetic places on Earth that are easier to travel to or through, like Shasta and other places.
Sure.
Yeah, mountains and springs and many places like that are known as portals. And the place that we were at was actually called Stewart Springs, which is one of the places where the mother and the father waters come out in the same location. And the only other place that's known to us is Glastonbury Well. And it was like a really sacred place where Masaru Emoto took some of his pictures. And so it's definitely a portal that we were in. And then also they believe that orbs are many people believe orbs are our ancestors joining us, and also that the star beings are also our ancestors and right. Fairies and things like that. So if they are coming through and traveling through these star shields, these orbs, Merkabas, or whatever kind of organic, energetic vessel that they're traveling through, I've also seen that they manifest out of those. Like they show like I think it's Briar Rose, Sleeping Beauty. They show the little fairies and they travel around their little balls of light, and then all of a sudden they grow and they manifest back into light. I think the fairy godmother does that on Cinderella, and like several beings. I think Tinkerbell is a ball of light and she just jingles and then she manifests. Yeah. Like all those.
We see that in the Bible with Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
Angels going up and then coming back down, going up, coming back down.
Yeah, Jacob's ladder is very, very cool topic.
Yeah. I think it is interesting, though, that there are orbs that you can see with your eyes, they're in physical reality. And then there's orbs that you can only see in like taking pictures or with certain sorts of vision that most people don't have.
Mm-hmm. Could that also be dependent on our level of energetic activation, how open our third eye is at that moment, or what we're attuning to, what radio station we're dialing into at the moment?
Or how much energy that being has to give or to use or whatever.
Well, Jeff said earlier, Jeff, you were talking about the spectrum, the light spectrum that we're able to see is just this tiny little chunk. Are cameras picking up more of that?
Slightly.
Yeah, maybe.
I forgot what the terminology. It's CCD sensors, but they can pick up a little more than you can see.
Yeah, it's like certain voice recording or sound recording devices that can actually pick up sounds that we can't hear, or dogs that can hear whistles that humans can't hear.
Right.
Man, dogs and cats can totally see shit we can't see. That like, I remember seeing, like, I had a time where my dog got like his hackles up and started growling. Harmony, you know this dog Ranger, he would have never growled at anything. He was like the most loving dog ever, and he growled, and I felt like an ice chill come from the direction he was growling at, and I was like, "There's a fucking like demon there," or something like that. Shit.
That place you lived. Oh my gosh, there was something going on there.
Yeah, that place is fucked up.
This is why I think everyone needs an animal. Everyone needs a dog or a cat in their house.
Or you have to develop your own senses enough to be able to sense that shit. Because if you can't sense it, you want someone you want a friend. Maybe that's why we've got them. You know.
Well, maybe we should treat them as guides. When they start freaking out, we start paying attention. What's there?
Yeah,
that's why the cat was so revered in Egypt. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Speaking of dog stories, my dog one time. First off, so I'm sitting on a couch like this, another house, and he's staring above my head and freaking out. And he goes and hides. I'm like, that freaks me out. But it was kind of the middle of the day, right? So fast forward almost exactly 12 hours, and I'm in my studio working on some stuff, and he comes running in and goes and hides under the table. So now I'm freaked out because it's 1 o'clock in the morning and he's running.
That's creepy.
So then he comes out from under my desk, and he parks by the door, and he looks out down the hallway, and then he just kind of backs up, gets underneath my legs, and just points his face toward the door.
He's like, "Go get it. It's over there."
I start talking to whatever. I'm like, "Look, man, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. You're freaking both of us out, so scram."
Closing time.
I don't know if it did or not, but that's my one. Well, no, not my one dog story, but that's a dog story.
Good boundary setting. I don't think people get that you can actually talk to shit like that and be like, "You're not allowed here. Get out."
Sure.
Yeah. I never got to tell my story. I'm trying to think of which one to tell. I'll tell an easy one. I was driving at night with a group of friends. I was driving somebody home, and a car was coming towards us on the road. And I had a way better story than this I could tell. I'll tell it another time. So when car was driving towards us on the road, and like, there's no reason why I should have ever slowed down because a car is driving towards me. Like, how many cars do you pass on the road at night? Like a million. You never slow down or stop. But for some reason I was like, oh, I'm supposed to slow down. Oh, I'm supposed to stop. And I stopped and rolled down my window, and that car also rolled down its window, except there was no one in the car. And then I just rolled my window back up, and we kept driving, and no one said anything that whole time. And then like a minute later, someone's like, "Why did we just stop?" And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, "Well, why did you stop?" And I was like, "Well, the car was coming." And they're like, "Yeah, but cars like drive by us all the time. Like, why'd you roll your window down?" I'm like, "I don't know. I thought they wanted to talk to us."
Yeah,
and then, and they're like, "Who was in the car? What did they, why was there no one there?" I'm like, "I don't know." And so I don't know what that was, but I'm guessing that's a screen memory for something. Yeah. And one of the people who was there that night is mentally scarred.
Imagine, I think I would be.
Yeah.
It's a ghost car.
It was a ghost car. There was nobody in it. Like, either it was a ghost car or that was a screen memory and something else happened. But there was no missing time with that one. So it's like, it happened in real time, or seemingly it did. Yeah. All right. So let's talk then about some of the more nefarious aspects of what the government could be doing with all of this, just to close things off. What kind of methods do you guys know about that the government could be using to fake alien abductions?
That's a big one. Hollywood, obviously, I'm going to go right off the bat. I think everything from the moon landing to the vast majority of pictures that we have of outer space, all, what is it, Red Hot Chili Peppers say? Space is made in a Hollywood basement.
Yeah.
So
they're like programming us to accept all that?
Well, it's normalization, or it's limited hangout. It's giving us enough, what is it, dangling a carrot? Or misdirection, look over here while this is going on. So
Yeah.
Well, then you can bring in what we know that the government does as far as, hiring crisis actors, the whole 9/11 thing. They're giant psyops. So if they're able to fake a mass shooting, if they're able to plan 2 towers in New York, 2 of the most iconic towers in existence in history, to fall down and blame it on this, they could create an entire alien invasion, and people would fall for it. And we know that they could, because they did in the 1930s with Orson Welles.
True. Yeah, we have historical evidence that they have tried things like that. What do you think, Jeff?
Oh man, I go all the way. So I think it could be even weirder than that, because I feel like what we see of the government and the nuts and bolts, guns and bombs. That's one aspect of it. There's this whole other layer that's happening in the studies that they're not telling us about. The studies of consciousness. The men who stare at goats. I know they made a movie about that, but that was a real thing where they stared at goats to try to kill them with their minds. And
Yes, that's based on a real journalist's real experiences.
Were in fact able to do it, but the problem was that in injuring the goat, the person would injure themselves too. Again, as above, you know what I mean? You can't without having to receive a little bit of it. So I feel like with all this time that's been going on, what if they could potentially actually seep into our consciousness with a technology or a technique that they've mastered, or if not mastered, gotten so far advanced with it that it's indistinguishable from what we might think are our own dreams. Maybe I had a dream and maybe it wasn't a dream, but it feels like a dream to me because somebody else put it there. That's a little too paranoid, but
it's not a little too paranoid. They've got technology that they're just revealing to us about, like reading our dreams, basically turning our dreams into like images. And there's what is that, like, helmet that they had, and this was a while ago too, where they could create the feeling of like being in the presence of God.
Yes.
Or there's like, this was in like 1994, there was research going on publicly that they were trying to create the simulation of what it might be like to be abducted. So like it's not that paranoid to wonder if they are doing that.
I don't think so. And in fact, I think that's we go on a wild conspiracy theory rant about phones. I think that's part of the push behind 5G is the induction of thoughts into our consciousness. They're able to do ad placement. They're able to read things out of our minds using, and we carry around the modem with us.
Yes. Yeah. And they are able to create certain feelings like anxiety or fear within you. They're able to create certain physiological effects like nausea and dizziness. And so, I mean, it's almost like they say they want full spectrum domination, and they may be on the verge of it, or they may have had it for a while.
Well, and to Jeff's point, look at the natural progression of a project, like a government project, like the Men Who Stare at Goats. That's what would the natural progression of that be in the hands of the nefarious CIA or whatever alphabet agency? Control, fear, panic, absolute control. And what's the best way to do that? Have everybody want to keep their chain, and
then tile that in with Project Bluebeam,
yes,
right, and creating mass level like imagery in the sky or whatever. Like, we could go as far as we want with this scenario.
And MK Ultra. Yeah, I think the thing we need to remember, though, is that it is based on frequency. And if our frequency is high enough and is radiating greatly enough, then they really can't affect our field, because it's like a force field, essentially. The force is with us. If we have that inside of us and we radiate like a scalar wave, like a mountain, we can actually blast away these electromagnetic fields.
Wouldn't that be the point of keeping everyone divided, angry at each other all the time? These negative vibration, keep everybody at that state, and they're able to harness that energy.
Divide and conquer, at every level.
So,
yeah, if you're angry and scared and upset all of the time, you also have less time to focus on kind of learning how to use your own innate tools too, because I think you have them. And if you don't know how to use your own innate tools, you can find things like orgone and wear it on you, or keep it in your house and do other things that can help protect you from invasive energies, no matter where they come from.
Himalayan salt.
Yep. I would say that one of your best weapons is knowledge, though. Understanding what it is that you're dealing with and understanding what's happening in your own life and how to manage your own emotions and how to manage your own objective view of reality.
Mm-hmm.
True that.
And unconditional love, like you said, fear is the control method. And so if we understand that, we can move into the space of unconditional love for everyone. And even those people that seem like they're dark forces, we can, instead of hating and fearing and sending those things out that are detrimental to them and us, we can actually just send out love and guidance and enlightenment and hope that, it all just reaches everyone and that bypasses that fear paradigm.
Hey, Francois back for our final question, which I want to pose to you all, which is, what would be your final words of wisdom that you want to send to all the listeners on the Rogue Ways podcast and in the Eyes Open Facebook group and anywhere else where people are finding this?
Well, I was just kind of basically saying what my words of wisdom are, is that, unconditional love, and it overpowers anything, and it will make your energy field bigger, and it will help you get through things that may be fearful when you look at it from a less dualistic perspective. When we move from a black and white, wrong and right, your way, my way mentality into understanding that we are all right and we're all understanding what we can from our different lenses, that it all integrates, and then we can kind of move forward to creating the world that we want to embody and being our most empowered self.
Nicely said.
I guess I'll take the reins. I think that I guess I'll use the term normie. I hate to throw that out there, but I think
I know it's becoming like a derogatory term now, but
maybe, well, at least I'm not saying NPC, but but making sure that not only you are researching these things for yourself and sussing out the truth of what the things that you read about for yourself. Make sure you're reading things that matter, things that will have some sort of effect on your life and your own view of reality, whether it's about UFOs or the paranormal, the occult, or politics. Find a view of reality and realize that, as true as that may sound, you're not being told the full truth, and learn to look past it and see what's really going on. That's how you start to see behind the veil, as they say it, the royal they. But just learn, never keep learning and working on yourself, and don't be afraid. I don't think UFOs are particularly nefarious coming to get you. And there's definitely something to it. 5 billion people can't be wrong. Everybody sees them. So figure out for yourself what they are, I guess is my point.
Nice. Yeah. What do you want to say, Jeff?
I would say that remember that there's a lot of manipulation and half truths, just period. So you got to be real discerning, and remember that reality is kind of subjective a lot of times. And just in the general population out there, when you go out and you think, oh, these horrible things are happening, it's like, are they really? And if they are, how are they affecting your actual environment, your actual world? So there's so much bullshit out there, so many things that never happened. We started wars over events that literally never happened. Mm-hmm. So how much blood has been shed over what came to be nothing? So, rewind the fear, because we're duality, right? So we're spirit beings and we're animal beings. The animal part of us is always looking for danger, because something might be creeping out of the woods to eat us, might fall into a pit, you might get hurt or something. So we got a propensity to lean toward fear. And they know this, whoever they are, they know this. So there's only ever things to trigger us and make us afraid. and keep us in a high anxiety level because we're way easier to control when we're scared and nervous and freaked out. So just reel that shit back in, man. Let that shit go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. What do you think, Frank?
Well, the iPhone is a piece of shit, and Jeff's beard is awesome. Yeah,
That's
that's
true.
pretty much what I can say right now.
Well, I'm glad you came back for the end here. I agree.
Yeah.
Jeff's beard is awesome. Jeff, you have like a purple aura about you, and it's a beautiful thing.
Cool.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I want to add to the final words of wisdom that I do believe we're in what the Vedic tradition would say is the Kali Yuga right now, and I think it can seem like a very dark time to people, and there's definitely energies that seem to be manipulating that to seem like a really evil time. Like Jeff was saying, though, it's not necessarily evil and darkness. You don't have to be afraid of it. And one thing that's really, really good about the Kali Yuga is that one tiny, tiny drop of light can be more powerful than what seems like an infinite darkness. So a tiny bit of good goes further than it ever would in any other yuga. And so I think, like Harmony's saying, like holding on to that unconditional love and light, and like Claude's saying, is like looking for the information that's true. Is any little bit of that you find is like more powerful now than it's ever going to be. So don't let go of that. Yeah. And I want to thank everybody for being here, friends at home and everywhere. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom, according to Francois. Thank you for being here, Frank.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. According to Jeff, thank you for being here, Jeff.
Well, thank you for having me.
According to Harmony, thank you for being here, Harmony.
Thank you so much. Gratitude.
And to Claude, thank you for being here, Claude.
Of course, wouldn't miss it.
So whether you're looking forward to a trip to the outer reaches of the universe or the multiverse, hoping for a guide to inner spaces, warding off invaders to our bathing suit zones, or wondering why people believe in little green men at all, I hope you have found something of value tonight, have stretched your ideas a little bit, and have perhaps found some new paradigms worth investigating. One thing is certain: no being has access to the most sacred parts of you except yourself, and you ain't got to share that shit with anybody. So not once, not never. Do what you will and know that you are safe and loved. The aliens, the other dimensional travelers, or the cloaked invaders are nothing when it comes to your free will. That shit is free for a reason. Use it liberally. I know I will. So until next time, travel well, aim for balance, and as always, look inside first.